that's something that I want you guys to keep in mind, that every time it goes up by 1%, it's decreasing your buying power. 1% rate increase decreases your buying power by 10%. Hey guys, we're in episode 11, and today we're going to be talking about how interest rates and what they're doing to your payments and how much your buying power is.
Wait, it's Generation Age. Dude.
Oh yeah.
What?
Generation Age. Hey guys, so today we're going to be covering something that's been very relevant for everybody's investors and regular home buyers alike. Everybody to some degree has either heard of it, been affected by it, or at least is being kind of, I feel like maybe paused by not being able to maybe buy into a house or whatever. Like things are being put into perspective, I think, for everybody across the board. And people are feeling it with rents and everything else. So what we're going to be talking about is something that's been very relevant since the beginning of the year, and that's the interest rates going up.
Yep.
Right? So the Fed putting in some basis points in order to increase rents and kind of slow down, I guess, what would be inflation.
Yeah, so the Fed raises interest rates they meet up 8 times a year, and they decide whether they want to raise the Fed funds rate, which in turn actually raises interest rates. It's not a direct correlation, but it does affect interest rates a lot because banks do rely on that to determine what they're going to lend out at. So basically, the Fed meets 8 times. The first one, they didn't raise interest rates yet because they thought inflation was transitory. Then they went 25 basis points up, which is 0.25%, March 15th and 16th. And then 50 basis points May 4th. And they also planned on June 14th, they also plan to do another 50 basis points to bring down inflation. So we'll see what they actually end up doing, but they usually stick to their word of what they're going to do. And they do actually plan on raising it every single meeting for the rest of this year, too, until inflation comes back down.
At least that's the objective. Right.
I was going to say, it can be really high by the end of the year if they keep going this rate.
Yeah, and then we all heard that interest rates, this is more for, just to give us an idea, but I would say more for the regular homeowner, the average interest rate is probably about 3.25%, 3.5%, something like that. And now we're all hearing that they're all closer to like 5% for the regular consumer, right? So these basis points that are being increased by are having an effect on the interest rates, and not just directly, but as Dylan was alluded to, it gets baked into the interest rates almost in preparation for the next rate hike.
Right? So basically, the banks are seeing that the Fed's planning on raising it for the next 5 meetings. So they're actually baking that into their interest rate they're giving out today. So if they do raise them, let's say in the next 5, the banks aren't necessarily going to raise them as much as the Fed is because they already banked some of those future rate hikes in, if that makes sense. That makes sense?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, but it makes
sense. So to iron it all out, to make it really crystal clear, as opposed to like throwing out Fed and basis points and all these like funny words, we're going to put it in numbers because I think everybody can kind of visualize this, because this is basically how much you're able to afford. So Dylan has done some numbers here, kind of showing us what the affordability was for a regular home buyer, and we're really just starting with a basis of like 100, just for numbers' sake, for argument's sake. So we started at what it was, which was 3%. Mm-hmm. That was pretty normal. It could have been 3.25%, 3.5%, depending on your credit and all. That could have afforded you $113,251 house. It's not going to get you very far, but that's how much you could afford at 3%, with your payment being $477.42. Now, that's before escrow, before taxes and insurance and everything else, but that's really what your payment was based off of for this, right? What we'll notice is that once it goes up 1%, it drops. It drops significantly. It drops $13,251, right?
Same payment.
Your payment stays the same. So, right? So your payment is staying the same. So what we've done is we put the same payment all across the board here, in relation to the interest rate. Now this is an exaggeration, but this is just giving you an idea of how far it can affect your buying power, right? So we've taken it all the way down to 7%, keeping the same payment alike, and you'll notice your amount decreases significantly. It decreases by about $13,000, $11,000, $9,000. it obviously goes down, but it's only because it's in relation to your buying power.
Right. So at 7%, you can only afford a house worth $71,000 with the same payment. As opposed to 3%, you can afford a $113,000 house.
$42,000 more of house.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of put it into relations in terms of investors. So the way that I'm kind of prepping for it as an investor is whenever I buy something, I try to move quickly. I think we all do.
Yeah.
But there are very few lenders out there now that are allowing you to lock rates.
Yeah.
Also
Well, at least
that-
investor rates.
At least investors.
Yeah, and not only that, but you're having to keep them 90 to 120 days before they'll even consider refinancing you.
Yeah.
So we're already looking 90 days out.
Yeah.
And that's really hard when the Fed is supposed to be meeting up with 8 times, so maybe another, I guess 5 more times if you want to consider June. 5 more times, and they're going to be increasing it for the rest of the year. So that's what this is going to depict. If you want to freeze your screen, you can do that. But what we've done here too is we've done what the average home was
In Richmond
in
or
Richmond,
the US?
Virginia.
RVA.
Yeah, in RVA. So homeowners in RVA. This is what the average house was in Richmond area. So this metro at 4%. And you'll notice, and this is just an average. I didn't do the exact numbers like we did up here, but it's an average of 10%. So that's something I want you guys to keep in mind, that every time it goes up by 1%, it's decreasing your buying power. 1% rate increase decreases your buying power by 10%. And that goes across the board for investors as well as it does for homeowners. So as we get higher to 5 and 6%, that's why, in my opinion, prices are, we're seeing price decreases.
They have to
We're
come
not
down
seeing,
because
yeah.
if not, people can't afford it. They just simply cannot afford to live in the median. This is the house median. This isn't talking high-end housing or any of that. This is medium price.
We've already seen a little slowdown with some of our properties on the market or properties we're bidding for. Less competition, that's for sure. There is still a lot of homeowners with locked-in rates from 2 months ago that are still probably trying to jump to buy whatever they want to buy before they have to adjust the new rate. So those homeowners are still probably trying to buy heavy until they get a house if they're locked in at a rate a month or 2 ago.
Yeah. So this kind of puts everything into perspective. There's a lot more information that goes into it. I mean, we could try to go into it a little bit more, but then it starts to get very convoluted. But what we want everybody to take home is very scary.
Look at that bee right there.
No, but just be aggressive. If you're gonna go out and buy, it's one of those like FOMO situations that you need to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna go out and buy aggressively, move quickly and close. Right, lock rates if you can, but move quickly. So if you're talking to an agent, look to buy quickly and close quickly.
Yeah.
If you're an investor, make sure that you're buying conservatively, right? So that you're baking all these rate increases into your purchase price, and then of course, you never know. Material increases and everything else, but all of this is having a negative impact on the backside, which is really hard to calculate because you can't.
You can't predict it for one.
Yeah.
And now, where do you guys see it going? Do you see us getting to that 10%, or do you see it getting? Because I think we're easily getting in the 7.5 before the end of this year.
So what do you think in 2 years?
2 years, we could be 8-9%. It just really depends, because I think that the Fed's going to realize that the negative effect that it's going to have on it, and they're going to start to decrease it only by default because it's having such a negative effect. And they don't want the economy to just crash and burn, so they're going to start working backwards to try and get it to a middle ground, and then it's going to flatline.
No, I agree to you partially. I think they're going to get around 7% for the average 30-year, maybe not investors, maybe between 6 and 7. I think by maybe Q4 or Q1 of next year, they'll probably start lowering it again, because I think we might be in a recession by then, and inflation might actually be slowing down. You never know, though. We'll see. But then I think it might come back down to the 5s. But you never know.
To that point, I don't think inflation can come down, because inflation is based off of a 12-month ratio, to where the last 3 months have already been so bad to where the way it works is the next month just erases the last month. So it's automatically going to keep going up for the next 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, but they compare it to the last. So in March, they see what inflation is, and they compare it to last March. So if you had a high inflation number last March, let's say prices went up 50% from 8 to 12.
Yep.
and then they go to 13 after that. That's a huge decrease in the rate of inflation because it went from 8 to 12, which is 50%,
Yeah.
and it went from 12 to 13, which is whatever 5%.
True.
So if the Fed does see that slowdown of inflation, they're probably gonna hit the brake pedal and probably lower rates, I would think. But
I mean,
also,
I feel like they have to. I don't
Yeah.
think that they can keep going in this direction.
They will. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the way I kind of look at it is like they have to hit neutral, right? Like
Yes.
you're gonna over accelerate, just like on a go kart, right? They're hitting the gas pedal, they're trying to move, and then they're gonna get their foot off, but it eventually needs to like slow down to just like a
Yeah.
cruising pace, and they just don't know what that right speed is, right? Like they don't know what the right interest rate or basis points to increase it by in order to slow it down. Their best guess can get them close, but I do think that it's going to get up. It's probably going to get over 7% in my opinion, and then it's going to start to go back down to your point.
Yeah.
But you never know. We could all be wrong.
Let's be real. We've all
Back to
been,
double digits.
Yeah.
And
We've
then
been
bye,
blessed
bye, bye.
for so long. I mean,
Yeah, we have been.
in all reality, who would have ever guessed we'd be in the 3 and 4% interest rates and be complaining that it's going to 6 now? It's kind of ridiculous if you look back.
Now, I will say one thing that we used to always have conversations about, and you used to always get on me about refinancing, and I was like, no, I'm not going to refinance it. Now looking back and being
you should have listened to
here,
old Billy,
I probably should have refinanced. No, but I was always like
you were always
between
between
here.
here, but now you're between here.
But that's fine. It's not like I could have refined, but like now
Yeah.
and get up there. But yeah, just seize every opportunity. Look at all the variables in mind, or have all the variables in mind, and then just know that things aren't always going to be like they are right now.
Yeah.
So like, have a system that works for you, but then things are going to have to change. So be ready to pivot. Be ready to change.
Now,
and have your mind open.
to recap, what was the interest rate when you first refied your very first property?
The investor loan was 4.99.
4.99.
Yeah.
How about you, Carlos?
5.25. 5.5 actually.
Yeah, mine was 4.75. The very first house I refied probably 2 years ago now. 4.75.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing a refinance today. 6.33.
Yeah.
And I close next
That's about
week.
what I'm at.
So that's about 2%. That's about
My buying power went
20%
way
down.
It also forced some investors that were planning on keeping their properties to possibly sell it, and that's also increasing the inventory on the market, meaning you could see prices lower from that
All right,
perspective.
so let's unpack that if we could.
Yeah.
So if you have a house that you were looking to refinance that you were going to keep as a rental,
Yeah.
you think that an investor would be wise to sell it instead of keep it?
I wouldn't say be wise, but they might change because they thought they're going to cash flow $400 because their payment on the mortgage was $800 and they're renting it for $12. But now if their payment on the mortgage is $1,000 and they're renting it for $12, first off, they might not get
I was
approved.
going to say the debt service ratio now doesn't make sense.
Exactly, and they might not want to even do that because they might not They don't want it not cash flow on the property.
Yeah.
Or
So I
they'll
think
have
that
to leave money in the
yeah,
deal
they
when
don't want to
refi.
leave money in.
Yeah.
So I think some investors, especially when you get to the upper ranges, I think they're probably going to run into that problem because rents have gone up, but not as quick as the housing prices went up. So it's not
even
staying
close.
on par.
But if that investor decides to sell and rates continue to go up, they're also losing
Buyers.
what their buyer pool would be, right?
No, but the investors are on hard money, short-term loans.
No,
right?
I'm saying for the end game, for the buyers.
Sell.
You're right.
They're
right?
losing
So,
buyers.
Yeah, so they bought it, they renovated, but by the time that they're going to sell, I mean, they're at the 88,000, 89,000, or 79,000,
Right.
depending on how long it took them
Yeah.
to eventually put it on the market. They could really be seeing a 20% decrease
Yeah.
in
could
selling price.
Yeah.
So now for this average home buyer, now instead of them affording a $350,000, now they're down here in the 224, 256 range.
Yeah.
That's a big difference
All
between
within
where
a
it was.
year
That's
to a year and a half.
$100,000
Yeah.
in a year difference.
Yeah. No, that's something to consider
And let's
too.
be real here. The difference between this house and this house is a big difference. This is a 3-bed, 2-bath. This was a 4-bed, 3-bath.
No, but this goes down, right? So like if this was a 4-bed, 3-bath, like the price, not the quality of the house, but the
this
price
same
of the
house is a 4-bed.
It's the same
yeah,
price.
Same house.
Because all of it, just the
Yes.
neighborhood as a whole, was a 350 neighborhood. Now it's a 250 neighborhood.
Do you think that the neighborhoods are going down $100,000 in value? Because my neighborhood has gone up $200,000 in value.
Sure, but you'll start to see that they come down once
Yeah.
you start having more comps come around.
Yes.
Yeah, because your neighborhood could have been like, say, a $500,000 house, right?
Yep.
And then as the comps start to come out slowly and the rates start to go up, it's going to go down to 425.
And you were all, in the last couple of years, we were in a lowering interest rate environment, meaning people had so much more buying power. That's what really caused.
Yeah, so it's shot up. It's a boomeranging, right?
Yeah.
It shot up
Well,
and then it's coming right back.
in my neighborhood, for instance, it's the buyers that are buying these houses are different quality buyers than used to be. Used to be a starter home neighborhood. Now it's more of a, you're a seasoned, in your veteran job, you're making quite a good amount of money, and now you can afford a house in our neighborhood versus before it was first time home buyers were coming and they were buying everything.
Yeah.
So it's a different buy. Now we have a different neighborhood and a different atmosphere because we don't have the same buying power as we did before. New homeowners or first time home buyers can't afford these houses.
Yeah, I do think that that's going to change though, and it's going to allow for millennials to like start to buy again. But it's going to be getting caught in those higher interest rates. But those are also the people that are more riskier, right? Like they can buy at this point, and then in 10 years they'll be 35, 40, and then they'll just refinance into hopefully a lower rate, opposed to like, I don't know, an aunt, an uncle, a parent, whatever, that's already in their 50s and 60s. Right? They're not going to refinance when they're 70. Right?
Now, do you think we're going to be back at 3% anytime
soon? Maybe not 3,
I
but
think we'll be
between
around
here.
here.
That's what I would think, but
but you never know.
No one knows.
You never know.
It's hard to predict. That's for sure.
All right, well that was it for interest rates. We just kind of glossed over it, but another episode for Generation H.